So these are quite a few words which are all ismuzat, examples of ismuzat. For example, we have here waladun, boy, child, ibnun, son, bintun, girl, or daughter, used for both. Rajulun, man, imra'atun, woman, madinatun, city. Madinatun, any city, not al-Madinatu, which is the name of a specific city in Saudi Arabia. So Madinatun, a city. Baytun, house, a house. Hadikatun, garden. Kalbun, dog. Dajajatun, hen. Dikun, rooster. Asadun, lion. And hisanun, horse. So quite a few words. This is kind of our vocabulary as well, you know. So nice to be familiar with these words. I wanted to point out a couple of things here. For example, let's look at this. Hadikatun is garden. And there is another word for garden, jannatun. Jannatun is also garden. Jannatun is a garden in which there is excessive growth, which is lush green, and sometimes they say so much greenery that you cannot even see sunlight on the ground. So there is excessive growth. So that's Jannah, any garden. And then al-Jannatu will be a specific place. We are familiar with that. So Jannatun, garden. Hadikatun is garden. Hadika, if you go to Dubai next time, just wherever you see a park, you will see it written Hadika. So it's kind of park kind of thing, that kind of garden. And there is another word called bustanun. Bustanun. That's also garden. And this garden is kind of private garden where you have high walls. It's surrounded by high walls. There may be boundary in Hadika as well, park boundary, but this is kind of purely private and very high walls. So that's bustan. So at least 3 words for garden in Arabic with minor differences in the meaning. That's one point. Another point, I can see here some words. These are Ibnun, for example, Ibnun, Imra'atun, and also Ism, which has been using Ismun. So this all has got this Hamza, and then we have said Hamza of lam of definiteness, al. That's also Hamza. Hamza of al always takes fatha, and these others tends to take kasra. That's one difference. And the other is that most of the words which start with Hamza that Hamza will be Hamzatul Qat'a, it will be pronounced. Even there is something before that. But the Hamza in these words specifically, this is also Hamza of that kind, Hamzatul Wasl. This Hamza, when something comes, a word comes before that, this Hamza will be dropped in pronunciation just the way Hamza of lam of definiteness is dropped. So for example, Isabna Maryama. So Isabna Maryama, mentioned in Quran. So what's happening here is that Hamza is not pronounced. So this is Hamzatul Wasl. Similarly, there's another example, Bismi Rabbikal Lazi. So we write like this, Bismi Rabbikal Lazi. So from this is Ba. So from Ba we go to Sin. We do not pronounce Hamza of Ism. So rather than Bi-Ism, actually this is Bi-Ism, but this is dropped in pronunciation. So Bismi Rabbikal Lazi Khalaq. So these Hamzas are also, they fall into the category of Hamzatul Wasl. Right. There is another word here, baytun. Baytun is for house, and this is masculine. And there is another word for bayt is darun. That's also house. But there is a subtle difference between the two. The nuance of that. It's baytun is from bata yabitu, which means to spend the night. The verb is bata, madi, and mudare will be yabitu. Yabitu. Bata yabitu, which means to spend the night. So from that we have bayt, house in that meaning. On the other hand, from darun, we have dara yaduru. Dara yaduru. Madi mudare. Yaduru. Which basically means to go around. The place where you move around and move with kind of freedom. So it is, darun is in that kind of meaning, but both means, in translation means house. One final point before we go to Ism Sifa is that we said that we can make, from masculine, we can make feminine by adding ta marbuta to that word. In Ism Zat, most of the time we cannot do that. There's one example here which is an exception. For example, kalbun. Kalbun is a he dog, and we can make by adding ta marbuta, we can make this feminine. It will become kalbatun. So he dog, she dog. So that's an exception. But otherwise, for example, if we look here, deacon, rooster, so we cannot make this feminine by adding deekatun. That word doesn't exist. So similarly, rajulun, we cannot say rajulatun. That doesn't exist. Rajulun, we have imra'atun, the opposite of that. Similarly, bintun, ibnun, and bintun, they are, we can, yeah, so these are different words. Very occasionally, these words can take ta marbuta and become feminine. Most of the time, that does not apply to Ism Zat.